It's Paul Blake's deal, and he's never ever late. It's always got to be on time. It's been planned in Excel for best part of 6 years, I think. Today's a big day for Paul. Not only is it his retirement, it's his birthday. Happy birthday, Paul.
Hey.
I'm not working a day longer than I have.
Hold on a minute, you don't get to talk to the end, sure. Because otherwise you won't get to retire at 4 o'clock if you want a word and everything on the way through this. And you don't get a write a reply on some of these. Most of you that have known Paul for a length of time, and I've known Paul for 20 odd years now, will know he's very, very organised, you know, over-organised perhaps, has a spreadsheet for just about everything, and keeps going in detail until everybody else gives up or goes to sleep or basically has to go home. But you'll also know that if he's passionate about something, he will work at it non-stop, he won't sleep, whatever, and he'll just stick with it until he gets to the end. Now, if he's not passionate about it, good luck getting him to do anything on it. But if he's passionate about it, it's there. And as you'll see later on, there's been quite a lot of those as he's gone through his career, including education. He's done a fantastic job of educating himself on the way through. So, earning as you learn, I think it's called now, before it was fashionable. And you'll see a pattern there as we go through some of the achievements. You'll also see this pattern around attention to detail, you know, perhaps at an anal level, but certainly a decent attention to detail. You'll also know, be quiet. You'll also know that if you've known Paul for any length of time, he's been planning this retirement for at least 6 years and perhaps longer than that. And it's been in a spreadsheet, and there's a little countdown tracker on his PC and everything. So this is the day. It should be now down into hours. Maybe minutes shortly if we carry on at this rate. So as is traditional when you do these sort of things, oh no, he's got it on his phone as well. You're just checking, how long have I got? 86 minutes, alright. Well, you can have the 6 at the end because it's going to take me 80 to go through this if you keep interrupting. So as is traditional, we generally ask around, we try and pick up some pictures, some stories, some anecdotes, some clean ones, because it's the last day, you don't want to be too horrible, right? But then it's his last day, so you can talk about some things that you might not do otherwise. And we did get quite a lot of input from his family, from past and present colleagues, and for the first time ever, in true Paul spirit, I got more input from Paul than from just about anybody else. Well, I was just going to talk about that. We are going to have to gag him if he carries on like this. But we got lots of input and actually some really nice comments and some pictures as well. But Paul's done us proud because evidently at his long service event, which I guess I was custodian for as well, there were some technical inaccuracies. And Paul being Paul wanted to put it right, so he made sure I've got the complete career history down to dates and times, how much he was paid at each individual job, you know, you get all the thing. So it's 100% correct for today. But I guess you've missed the point, Paul. You know, even with all the detail, we're only going to use half of it, we're going to make up the other half anyway. So a little bit about Paul. I've known him for 20 years, I think, just about, maybe a little more than that, so I can talk to some of these firsthand. But some of them were a little bit before my time. So he started working life as a commis chef, would you believe, at the Bay Tree restaurant in Salisbury. Then he moved on and became a vehicle mechanic, did an indentured apprenticeship. So that was between 73 and 78, and at that point decided it was time to move on to bigger things and applied to join Ford Motor Company, the Big Blue Oval, and take the decision to move his family from a small village in Salisbury in Wiltshire to Essex. And Paul joined to be a prototype mechanic. This is actually his second role as a dyno operator, but it's the closest picture we could find. And at that stage, it's kind of interesting, you get the starting letters, etc. He got his offer letter on 27th of June 1978. Started in July, and his wages at that stage were £1.942. I don't know how they do a third decimal place on the hourly rate, but £1.94 an hour. It's changed a bit in that time, right? Wouldn't even buy you a pint now. So he started life as a prototype mechanic and did that for 3 years, and then he moved on to the dynos that you see there, sporting a very fashionable Tash, which you'll see in lots of the pictures later. We should have got you onto it today, maybe. Just coming forward now, right? And at that stage, he was working in dynos. I was in dynos at that stage as well. And at that point, electronics division, so the first part of what was Visteon as it is now, was setting up a powertrain systems group. So Peter and myself were the first two guys to join that, with a guy called Max Pressick from the States who came across to set it up. And then Tony Savell, who was another dyno guy, came across to run the chassis dyno, and we were looking for somebody to do the first fully dynamic engine dyno in Ford at that time, and in Visteon as well. And we went, applied as you would do through the normal process, and did some interviews, and that's where Paul started to shine. Some will know, but not many perhaps, and it was the thing that perhaps impressed us most in the interview, and I think ultimately it was the thing that probably got you the job. It wasn't necessarily the engine experience, but Paul, when he came up from Wiltshire, was kind of depressed at the amount of community spirit there was in Essex. Can't imagine why. But he was used to a nice little village community, and he was living in Leyden at the time, and he decided that he would go about building a community centre, which is still there to this day. My kids play football in it occasionally. So he built the Leyden Community Centre with a bunch of other people. He was the secretary and the treasurer, and there was a lot of news coverage at the time, as you can see. Again, still sporting that Tash on the right. Looks like somebody completely different, but evidently that was you. So there was a build process and then a grand opening. And to see somebody who comes for interview, when you say, well, what else do you do outside work? And they talk about what they've done to create a community centre like this for the locality they're in. It really wasn't much of a difficult choice in terms of who should have the job. So at that point, Paul joined us. He was set about to work on a high dynamic dyno. So it's the first time that dynos did what cars actually did. There's a picture, I think, next. That's it. That's the same. Well, that's Paul actually with his. That looks a bit more like Paul with the Tash, really. And yeah, you're kind of heading that way too. Good. Despite to it. So at that point we worked on a project, Paul and I very closely together. I was doing the dyno equipment piece and Paul was the dyno guy. That was about $1 million at that stage. So that was a lot of investment for that time. It was actually, the blue building at Dunton was built around that machine. So it started in that corner and moved around. And because it was brand new and very difficult, there were a whole load of things there that had never been done before. And as a result of that, we had to go to Erlangen in Germany quite often to meet with Siemens. And one of the guys in Siemens thought he could drink a bit. So the first time I went out, I was, a poorly sick boy the next morning, so I took my secret weapon with me next time. I took Mr. Blake, pitched him cocktails against Mr. Blake drinking pints of Weiss, as I remember, and the Siemens guy wasn't very well next morning. There's also another story later on in the process where Paul was out in AVL doing some correlation also with another type of dynamic dyno, and his plane was laid back and he was supposed to be meeting some guys in London, so he managed to find them, don't know how yet still, find them in the middle of London for a Christmas night out, having no clue where they actually were. Yeah, before phones and navigation. The other thing that Paul embarked on at that stage was improving his education. So I don't know if you know the history, but Paul has gone through, he's done an ONC, then he did an HNC, then he did the APEL accredited prior learning degree that was run at that time in Ford, so he picked up his B.Ed in automotive engineering. And to do that at the same time as raising a family and doing a job is not a trivial task. So again, another case where that commitment to, once he decides he's going to do something, is very, very visible. Then he moved into control systems, spent some time changing jobs in ABT there, and then perhaps the most interesting document I found was something called Paul Blake, The Truth. And you just can't pass up an opportunity like this. And it was part of a coaching thing. I can't remember where it started, but I remember doing it with Paul. And just to give you a vintage here, it was a 1996 vintage, and the reference at the bottom, it says Winward floppy / personal. So this thing's on a floppy drive somewhere, probably still. It's probably stapled to that brochure. But there's a couple of things on here I thought I'd share. The idea of the document, and I haven't put the document up there because there are some sensitive, personal things on there, but it's a document where you talk about your strengths and your weaknesses and what you need to do as part of improvement. And it talks a little bit about, career development and stuff as well. So there's a couple in there that I thought were good. And this is Paul's view of himself, so you can judge whether it's true or false, or if it's changed much since '96. I don't think it's changed a whole lot, let me tell you. So I'm not sure the process works, but the document's good fun. Quick to learn. I'd agree with that. Very adaptable, can adapt quickly to new environment, conditions, requirements. I mean, he went from knowing a bit about dynos to, pretty much designing a full dynamic dyno with Siemens. Excellent organizational skills. I'd agree with that. Over the top maybe sometimes, and you'll see that on the weaknesses side. Then he talks about having an intense drive and enthusiasm and commitment if he believes in what he's doing. And you'll see the converse side of that is that the challenge was to show the same commitment in the things he didn't like doing. Fourth one then was an approachability, willing to listen, counsel and advising. I think, a lot of the comments that I saw from people who'd worked for you or worked with you was that you were a great sounding board, that, you would give a very balanced opinion on anything you were asked to comment on. And then the one I liked most was getting people to do things they don't want to. I won't ask how you did that, but clearly a very useful skill. And if you look at that building project, there must have been a fair amount of that as you built a community centre. So in terms of weaknesses then, and they're kind of linked to the same thing. So the weakness around organisational stuff is too much attention to detail. So you knew it then. This was in '96, and how many years on? And it's part of your DNA, Paul. Just give up. Just apply that same attention to detail in retirement. Not letting go, law of diminishing returns. So if you believe in something, you won't let go, and that is a kind of strength and a weakness. I could see that. And then the one I like best was spending, in terms of getting people to do what they don't do, spending too much time in achieving this by demonstrating if I can do it, so can you. So the way Paul gets people to do things they don't think they can or want to do is to show them how to do it first and embarrass them into that process. In terms of what he wanted and needed to do, understanding matrix management and Ford 2000, that really does take things a bit. Have you figured out matrix management? Because perhaps you could tell the rest of us when you have. And then the others are really about balance, basically, but the thought around it and applying discipline and control as he goes. Well, I'm not going to tell him everything. I can do if you want. What you don't want to do. Well, that's not very specific on here. Oh yeah, application and component engineering. Going back to test ops and manage a group in the manufacturing facility, and then he went on to be quality guy at Basildon. No, that's true. Well, you never know. There's probably a contracting opportunity for retirees over there, you never know. Then the most significant move next, I think, was probably the Basildon plant, where, Paul was the quality manager. He was very hands-on. The feedback we got from that was very similar, that he spent a lot of time actually out on the floor. If he felt it necessary to sort parts, he'd go out there and do it. And on his time there, he was, with the quality hat on, and clearly I've got a bit of an interest in that too. He took the plant from about 3,000 ppm to single-digit, 3, I think, in the end. I'm sure that was a negotiated 3, but anyway, 3 is good. But clearly a very, very hands-on guy. And then, towards the end, he's been involved in the business tools, enterprise stuff, and a lot of the tools that we use on a regular basis today. But I think what impressed me most about the comments that came in were some of the personal ones. So there's an awful lot of comments about being a good boss. It's not often you get those, but they're the things you really should take away as being very proud of. Incredibly high integrity, very, very hard worker. Remember brackets if he's interested in it. And a very, very good sounding board. So what's next? Oh, forgot one. No, it's okay, that was on purpose. EDAP, some of you still do. EDAP's not quite as attractive as it used to be because of the tax rules, but Paul, with his EDAP money, went to learn to drive a steam train. And that is his certificate there. So he is now fully qualified in the theoretical and practical instruction of a steam engine, should you ever need it. So that's, I guess, another retirement possibility that you're going to go off and play trains as well. But unfortunately, that compounds a little bit with what I think will be the real place Paul ends up, and that is fishing somewhere. Now, it could be Paul, it could be somebody else. It could also be that he's actually in there just having a tinny or two, or perhaps he's asleep, although generally he tends to have the other 10 sleep down in that. But Paul, if you haven't already heard, is a fanatical fisherman. He keeps Excel logs about his fishing trips, mostly to explain probably why the big one got away. Or
Just to fill you in, that's the very first picture of me, actually, my first ever fishing. Oh, sorry. Yeah, just to fill you in on that picture, that was the first time that I actually went course fishing, and it was a Basil Plan staff hourly paid match, and it's tight as a comic print. And I sat there all day and didn't catch anything. But we had a thunderstorm, and that's why it was. I wasn't prepared. So I forgot his name now. I can still see him came running around with a tarp and put it around me. It was fine with him.
see, that was a test. I knew I shouldn't have given him the mic because you're going to get like 10 levels more detail than you really need about anything. In fact, it's actually a certain type of grass that only grows in. So what's next for Paul then? Clearly fishing, I think, will be a large part of it, but Paul by now has spent a huge amount of time on his family as well. So although he spent all his time, you know, doing stuff here at work and educating himself, he has raised a very nice family. Some of them I met along the way when they were, I don't know, maybe this high. 7 grandkids now. And his daughter Emily is the one I've met, and I'll tell you the story about how I met Emily. Paul being very organised, was moving house, got everything planned up, you know, he's got the electric turned off and gas meter readings and everything else. He sent his license off to the DVLC to get the address changed, but then realises he has to hire a van to move. So he can't hire a van because he hasn't got his license because he sent it off. So Swanson was the van driver for the move that day, and Emily was doing the gear changes. I think she was about 7 at the time, but she could change gear better than her dad anyway. And she's now, I'm guessing, 30 plus with a family of her own, which is nice. And the other thing that you might not know about Paul is that his wife Anne is from an island called St. Helena, which is a million miles away down near the Falklands, I think, pretty close. And it's very, very difficult to get there. It doesn't have an airport, it's quite a long swim. You have to go, I think, on a plane so far and then a boat trip for a couple of weeks. So Paul hasn't ever been able to go there, but I think, at least from what I hear from the family, your plan is to do that now you're in retirement. Actually go down and see where his wife was born. There's also a bit of a list with the family, evidently, of those things that you're going to do when you retire. So every time they make a suggestion, yeah, I'll do that when I'm going to retire. But they haven't been keeping the list, so that may come back to haunt you. I'm sure you've got time to put it in Excel shortly and put some priority around it. So fishing is really where it's going to be, I think, though. So in terms of collection presentation, we decided we'd just get you a bunch of angling vouchers so you can spend them on whatever you would desire from the fishing side. And now the dangerous part, well, perhaps you give you the card and the vouchers first. And now the dangerous part, because at this point I'm actually going to give him a mic for a chance to say a few words, but I've kind of planned this thing fairly late in the day on the basis that if it goes on too long, he's actually just going to screw up the deadline for his own retirement. So, and generally I don't think Paul's going to do that after 6 years of planning. So I think we're okay as long as we don't go more than about, well, another 65 minutes is probably the maximum. So we'll see if we can do it a bit quicker than that. Paul Blake's been a pleasure, an absolute pleasure.
a few more in there. Well, he's stolen me thunder. Where's he gone?
Oh, you said it to me.
No, I was going to say that my retirement was a snap decision.
Yeah, right.
And I only decided to do it, and I suddenly had time to prepare. Fucking that joke. Yeah, I guess I've been out of the building for about a month. I've been down the departure lounge, and so hey, I got my boarding pass. So that's quite good. Basically, I think I'm very, very fortunate. I guess there's a lot of people in here probably won't have the opportunity that I'm having, is to go on my 58th birthday. It's one of the legacy things that we have had been able to hang on to. So I feel very, very fortunate to be able to do that. And I thank all those people that were able to bring that in. So thank you very much. Coming to work. Okay, 36 years. Oh my goodness. A lot of it you think, oh God, did I get up in the morning? But you know, when you get into work, there's going to be a group of people there that you know you're going to interface with. And you know, there's always going to be a friend, or a smile, or perhaps even a growl. And Bob was saying about some of the feedback at the beginning. I've been getting some of the feedback in during the week, and it seems to be that I had this sense of humour and I was funny. But you ask Paula Mooney, ask Lindsay, ask Wendy, they all call me Victor, because I'm rather grunt. So I don't know where this impression comes that I'm funny, I just got no idea. So that's it, but the company is made up of a bunch of lovely people, and I will miss you all, that's for sure. There's been some good people along the way that's actually steered me. The guy here, and the guy here, I don't know where he's gone. He's over there. Right, and Max. People that obviously saw something in me that they could think, well, okay, you know, it's got long term, we can do something with this guy. And I've been very fortunate again to be in the right place at the right time and have the right guidance and tutorship through that. And I thank those guys for that as well. Talk about the fun. I've actually got it here. Talking about the thing, I actually did an interpersonal skills course. You see how well organised I am, because I can't find it now. It's a piece of written paper.
I told you we were going to get some detail.
I can't find it now. There's a written piece of paper there, Claire, if you can find it for me. I'll come back to that. But actually, going on about the thing, it was in PLP in 1997. I had to go back and look it up, and I was ploughing through them last night to try and find them. And PLP said it used the word, Paul is very gregarious. And I thought, you know, I've never heard that word. So I had to go and look it up. And does anybody else know what it means? I guess it's just a very open, sort of friendly sort of guy. So an open sort of thing. But I did this interpersonal skills, right? So, and this is the written feedback you get from the tutor. So, things you do well as a communicator. Friendly, approachable person demonstrated through body posturing and facial expressions. Positive frame of mind. Look for the best in others all the time and is willing to give people the benefit of the doubt. This is just like one course. I thought it was one person looking at me. Have the ability to separate emotions from behaviours in all transactions observed. Always willing to compromise. Then the watch outs. Rescuing. You could be used as a get-out. Try to act as a natural arbitrator. This can be done quite easily by changing your desire to make things right by personally taking things on. To focusing on your energies into helping others solve their own problems. So goal areas, stop rescuing, but continue arbitrating. You demonstrate closet leadership qualities. And be more confident in what you see, believe in yourself. And I only found that again last night, and based on what Bob's just said and what I've heard, and I thought, wow. And that was just one day course. Somebody saw that in me, so I thought I'd share with that anyway. Okay, so what have I done? I think you've done most of it.
Good.
Yeah.
Aaron staying.
Hang on, we've got 3 minutes. Yeah, I was trying to think back all the highlights and the bits and pieces that we've done. Obviously, the dynamometer was a big one. But I think the one I got the biggest kick out was a thing called Gina. It wasn't a lady. Gina, all started off, I was what role I was doing. I was GPMO, that's right, so I was doing all the vehicle program management office stuff. And my boss said, hang on, I need to use your quality manager skills, because she was responsible for the service desk. So she said, we've got a real problem with the service desk. Their satisfaction rating is like 0. Can you get in there and find out what's going on? To cut a long story short, basically, when you actually went and did the analysis, it was the fact that every time somebody forgot the password or got locked out, they ring the service desk, spend 20 minutes trying to explain who the hell they are. And have you all experienced that in the past? Yeah. I've listened to the tapes, it's absolutely hilarious. And so I said, well, yeah, that's, if you want to get that up, that's one area you need to go for. So, of course, opening big mouth, you know, things start to snowball. So I said, then I found out there actually was, online, a tool that you can actually go reset your own password. Did anybody know about it? No. So, having known that, I said, you could just go to another PC. So, no, we want to get that on when you log in. When you come in the morning, you come back off holiday, you're all stressed out. You want to get, no, you shouldn't be stressed out after holiday, but you can't remember your password, then you get locked out, then you're trying to phone somebody in the Philippines and can't get a straight answer. We just need to have that when you log on. Surely, in this day and age, we can hack into that particular bit of code and just put the link there. No, it can't be done. So one night, sat at home, about five cans of Stella in, get a phone call about 11 o'clock, Darlene's on the phone. We found some software. Right, you want it, you can program manage it. And I got a real buzz out of that because it was something I sort of started off from scratch, just using data, and it actually impacted everyone in it, globally. And when you look at the data, the service desk data, all the calls to the service desk went like that, satisfaction went like that, and Bob's your uncle. Or not, as the case may be.
Don't remember that.
So that was done relatively recently, so I remember that one quite well, and that's one I should remember. So, where are you lot going? Okay. So my observation of where I've been, obviously I spent 20 years in Ford, 15 years in Visteon, or thereabouts. And of course, we became Visteon, became this very impetuous child. Now I look at her now, she's like 15 years old. She's just starting to develop into a mature young woman. That's my analogy of where I think the company is. So that's probably a good time to get out. Because I could get myself in trouble. Anyway, I'll leave it there anyway. Anyway, thanks for all the people who responded to me in the nice notes, it's great. And I had a few tears, just there a little while. So it's been an emotional couple of weeks. Been around Germany and the States and doing similar things there. So I'm glad you all took the time out of your busy days to come and say goodbye. Thank you very much. You notice I had to do it in Word because I can't write anymore because I don't know what the pen is anymore.